Fall of Knix, a teacher's trial. Episode 9, the newspaper that shook the bars. By the third week, Knix had lost track of days. Time in prison didn't follow the sun or calendar. It moved by sounds, the rattling of chains, the clang of gates, the whistle of the warden, the groan of hungry bellies at dawn. He had stopped asking for visitors. No one was coming. Until one morning, something changed. A young warder walked past cell 9 during breakfast, swinging a copy of the Lagos Herald in his hand. Knix barely noticed. He was too busy staring into his bowl of watery beans, too tired to think. But Samuel sat up quickly. "Teacher," he whispered, tapping Knix. "Your name." Knix looked up. "What?" Samuel pointed. "On the front page, it's you." Knix stood, heart suddenly racing. He rushed to the bars. "Officer," he called out. The warder paused. "What is it?" "Please, that newspaper. Can I just see it?" The young officer looked at him, considering. "You're the teacher, right? The one who beat that rich man's son?" Knix didn't respond. The officer smirked. You're famous, but you might not like what you see." He slid the paper through the bars. Knix grabbed it with shaking hands. Across the front page, in bold red letters, it read, "Private school teacher left to rot in jail. Injustice or justice?" His eyes widened. Below the headline was a photo of him in handcuffs, taken weeks ago. Under it, the article began. Knix Emanuel, a 26-year-old economics teacher, sits in a prison cell while the school he served for over a year has remained silent. Our investigation reveals shocking details. Teachers claim the student involved, Zita and Kemdelim, had a long record of violence and disrespect. "We warned the school," said one anonymous staff member. "Zita once broke a table in anger. He threw a duster at a female teacher last term. Yet, no punishment came." If this is true, the question remains. Was Knix a violent man, or a man pushed too far by a failed system? Knix's knees gave way. He dropped to the floor and held the paper to his chest. Samuel bent beside him. "It's not over. Someone's asking questions." A quiet voice from the back of the cell added, "Maybe now. The world will start listening." Knix blinked hard. His heart was pounding, not from fear, but from a small flicker of hope. That night he couldn't sleep. Not because of the mosquitoes or the noise, but because of the light building in his chest. Someone out there still cared. Someone out there still believed he deserved to be heard. The next day, more news came. A senior warden approached his cell. "You have a visitor. From the press." Knix stood, stunned. As he was led down the hallway, he passed inmates who nodded at him. A few even clapped lightly. "Make we hear your story, teacher," one said. "No, let them kill your voice." Knix swallowed the lump in his throat. He stepped into the small visitor's booth where a young woman with glasses and a notebook waited. She looked up and smiled. "My name is Mariam. I'm the journalist who wrote the story." Knix stared at her, stunned. "You wrote that?" he asked, voice shaking. She nodded. "And I'm not done yet. The people need to know what really happened, not just about Zita, but about what schools are hiding. I need your full story, Mr. Knix. All of it." Knix sat down slowly, and for the first time in weeks, he spoke. "Hope is not a loud thing. It does not shout in your ear. It whispers in small pages, in quiet visits, in the eyes of a stranger who chooses to believe you." Knix's diary, July 9th. Episode 10, Whispers in the Staff Room. At Bright Future College, the air had changed. What was once a quiet, disciplined private school with white uniforms and polished hallways was now filled with tension. Teachers walked through the corridors with their heads down. Students whispered behind textbooks. Even the cleaners moved slower, their eyes scanning the walls like they expected them to speak. Because the walls had seen what everyone had ignored, Knix's story was on everyone's lips. The staff room, usually filled with laughter and arguments about lunch breaks and lesson plans, was now as silent as a graveyard. No one sat where Knix used to sit. His chair remained pushed under the table, untouched. Mrs. Lawal, the government teacher, broke the silence one afternoon. "Have you read the Lagos Herald?" The room looked up. Mr. Joel, the English teacher, nodded. "Yes, twice. That article shook me. I didn't know Zita had been warned so many times." "He slapped Miss Boma last term," whispered Mrs. Lawal. "She didn't report it. Said she was scared to lose her job." "He threw a chair at me once," said Mr. Afalabi, adjusting his glasses. "Missed by inches. I wrote a report. The principal ignored it." The room grew quiet again. Then finally, Miss Chica, the literature teacher, stood up. "We all knew Zita was dangerous, and we all kept quiet. Now Knix is suffering for what the school refused to deal with." Her voice cracked with emotion. "I told the principal myself. Sir, this boy needs help, not just warnings. But he said we couldn't embarrass the Nkemdilim family. Their donation helped build the new science lab. That money kept us silent." Mr. Joel sighed deeply. "So we sold Knix for a lab." Silence again. Then Mr. Akin, the same man who once shook Knix's hand at his interview, entered the room. All eyes turned to him. He looked tired, hollow-eyed, broken. "Teachers," he began, "I just came from a meeting with the board. The journalist, Mariam, is investigating our internal records. She sent a letter to the school, asking for Zita's discipline file." "Do we even have one?" someone muttered. "No," Akin replied. "That's the problem. There's nothing on record, no reports, no warnings. As far as the school files say, Zita was a perfect student." Everyone groaned. Akin sat down heavily. "The board is scared. They want us to stay quiet, but—" His voice softened. "I can't keep lying. I trained that boy. I interviewed him. I told him he was going to make a difference. And now he's in prison. Broken." Miss Chica stepped forward. "Then do the right thing. Speak up. Give Mariam the truth." Mr. Akin nodded slowly. "I will." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the school walls, whispers began turning into words, words into plans, plans into action. The staff decided they would write a joint statement. They would expose the truth about Zita's behavior and the school's failure to act, even if it meant risking their jobs. Because for too long, silence had been their shield. Now, it was their shame. Sometimes it is not the crime that buries the innocent. It is the silence of those who watched it happen and said nothing. Mariam's notebook, July 12th.